WWL, Bobby Hebert, and Mike Detillier, they are going to talk to us a little bit about Pete Carmichael, a.k.a. Dingus number 1. So the Saints are keeping Carmichael as offensive coordinator. We have talked about that at length here on the channel. According to them, they need changes, and here's one suggestion. So let's go ahead and listen to the WWL Brain Trust at work and hear what that suggestion is. I have not watched this video. Obviously, I'm watching it live with all of you, and I will react accordingly.
You offensive coordinators in the National Football League, but there won't be one in New Orleans. As Mike Triplett is reporting that the Saints will retain Pete Carmichael as offensive coordinator. They will make one move, apparently, with Dan Rochar, who Dan coached running backs, offensive line. Last year he was the running game coordinator, tight end. He'll be the only one that looks as though won't be retained. But, Bob, this is a surprise to me. This is a football team offensively last year that had no identity on offense. They couldn't run the ball very well at all. And, man, you got to make some changes here. A lot of people don't. Oh, continuity.
So, I love it. It's crazy because everyone seems to have the same idea or the same mindset or seeing the same things. The only person that doesn't agree with all of us is Mickey Loomis. It's the one that's holding all the cards. Like, it's the craziest thing. I mean, everyone I listen to, whether we react to a video from, T-Bob and Jacob Hester, or whether we react to a video from Bobby Hebert, or whether we react to a video from Colin Cowherd, or I'm talking to my Uber driver, it doesn't matter. Everyone is like, look, we have no identity, we have no scheme, we have no philosophy, we're listless, and we're just kind of sputtering along being a terrible ass offense. And everyone says a good thing to do in that situation would be to go ahead and get off of Pete Carmichael. Get rid of Carmichael, find a new offensive coordinator, let him come in, let him kind of imprint what he wants for the team, and then we build around it. We're just treading water with Carmichael. And the only person who says no, the only person is somehow the general manager.
It is great. Continuity is great if you're successful. But if you're not successful, then you got to do something different. And apparently you can feel that way as an organization, and that's all great and fine. But if you want things to change, you got to do it differently. Well, I gave Charlie this stat. The last 8 games of the season, the Saints defense really played well. They gave up 118 points in 8 games. Bob, that's less than 15 points a game.
No, you should never lose.
We lost to the Panthers. We gave up 55 yards of passing. That's how bad at home. That's how bad the offense is that we lost to a division team, a division opponent at home, and we gave up less than 60 yards passing. That's crazy.
They scored 118.
No.
That's why you 4-4. Well, because you couldn't run the ball and your passing game was erratic.
Well, and then you look at it, it's the same offense, but you don't have Drew Brees or Sean Payton.
Exactly.
And Pete Carmichael.
See, that's another bad thing. It's not the same offense. If it was the same offense, I think we'd all be okay with that. If they were running, that's honestly what we kind of asked for. We asked for, that's the continuity that Loomis wanted was, look, we've had so much success with this for 15 years. Let's not blow this up. Let's see if Allen and Carmichael, especially Carmichael, let's see if he can at least kind of do what Sean Payton was doing. And then we'll just, if it works, then we'll plug in better players as down the road, and then hopefully we can find the next Drew Brees and find the next whoever, and then we'll just be running the same offense, and bada bing, bada boom, realest guys in the room. The problem was we weren't running that offense. We weren't running Sean Payton's offense, which is not good whenever that's the whole plan. That's my biggest issue with Pete Carmichael, is that he's proven that he cannot do it. He doesn't have the functionality to run that offense. He doesn't understand it. I don't know what it is. He doesn't understand the screen passes. He doesn't understand getting Alvin Kamara in the slot or out wide and running routes. He doesn't understand any of that stuff, it seems like. He doesn't, bottom line, he just doesn't have that. And that's not how he wants to do it. And a lot of people in the comments have said, maybe it's not Pete Carmichael. Maybe it's Dennis Allen. And I thought about that. That honestly may be it. I'm really hard on Pete Carmichael. And Dennis Allen, but really hard on Pete Carmichael because he's the offensive coordinator. So when the offense is sputtering, the offense is pathetic, and the offense has no spine, the offense has nothing, I'm going to blame the offensive coordinator. Now, it could be Dennis. Dennis could be throttling Pete Carmichael. He could be saying like, no, I want to run this, or no, let's do this, or whatever. I don't know. I'm not in those conversations, thank God. But if that's the case, that's even worse for Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen was the defensive coordinator. He needs to stick to that. And I have a feeling that's not the case. But what has for sure been the case, and what we know with certainty, is that these two collectively cannot replicate what Sean Payton was doing. So, if that's the case, I agree with Mike Detillier. I agree with Bobby Hebert. We need to go in a different direction. There's no point in having these two with the stability and the continuing all that stuff. There's no point in preaching that if we're not consistent in anything. What's stable? Winning 7 games, winning 6 games, winning 5 games. What's the point of having continuity if that continuity consistently gets you 5 to 8 wins? We need something else. I keep saying this phrase, but the era of Sean Payton and Drew Brees is over, and it ain't coming back. So we need to go ahead and find our new era. What's the new era of the New Orleans Saints? You look at teams around the NFL, like the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens had the era with Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and all those guys, Terrell Suggs. What happened when that was over? Did they just keep playing the same way and hope that they'll find someone else? No. They entered a new era. That new era, had John Harbaugh and had this Lamar Jackson experiment and Greg Roman, my boy. And that era for Baltimore was really good. Did it get them a Super Bowl? No. It got them a bunch of 12-win seasons. It got them very, very deep, deep into the playoffs. It got Lamar Jackson an MVP. They were a fun, relevant team. Not every team can win the Super Bowl every year. All right? And now the Ravens are entering another era for what it looks like. It looks like Lamar Jackson's out. Greg Roman is definitely out. So that, to me, that's how you should do it. You should enter in and out of these eras depending on things like your staff, depending on things like your players. If you have Lamar Jackson, again, we're back to the Ravens. If you have Lamar Jackson and you're the Ravens, you're not going to coach him the same way that you coached Trent Dilfer in that era. You coached the Ravens with Trent Dilfer and that defense differently because it was a different era. It was a different system. Your team had a different identity. And right now, the Saints just don't have an identity. We had that high-flying West Coast-styled offense, very creative with Brees and company, and it was super exciting. And we all know the successes that we had after that. When Brees got worse, we kind of changed our identity to being this defensive juggernaut where you could not run on the Saints. Yeah, and people knew the Saints are going to. What are they consistent at? They're consistent at stopping the run. You've got to kind of change. And right now, for whatever reason, Mickey Loomis just will not change.
Carmichael was involved in this, but if you look since 2006, for 16 seasons, the top 3 scoring offenses, then obviously a lot of this is Tom Brady with the Patriots. I got to look it up, but I know it's around here. It was like the Patriots, the Saints, and then the Packers. And you can figure it was Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Aaron Rodgers. And, Mike, it does
make a difference.
And they all were averaging basically 27.5 to 28 points a game. And to me, if that's what you're averaging, then shame on your defense if you're not winning. Then that's the type of game you should win. But the one thing, when you change an offense or not changing offensive schemes and what you're doing, is that whether Sean Payton was coaching or Drew Brees the quarterback, whoever's the quarterback, you can't have all those giveaways. You can't have double-digit giveaways and interceptions.
So he hit on a point that I 100% agree with. It's losing Sean Payton and Drew Brees. You're losing, for my money, you're losing probably the second-best quarterback to ever play in the NFL. And in Drew Brees. At least minimum top 5. I think everyone would agree that Drew Brees is a top 5 person to ever play the position. Sean Payton, for his tenure, the last 15 years, was a top 3, top 5 coach in the NFL. So losing a top 5 coach, top 5 quarterback at the same time is really hard. No doubt about it. But what you should not have lost was that scheme. And to me, that's the problem. A lot of people are very results oriented when they talk about this kind of stuff, like the yards per play, our points per game, things like that. That's obviously going to drop when you go from Drew Brees to Trevor Siemian to Jameis Winston to Andy Dalton to Taysom Hill. Obviously, that's not going to be the same. You're not going to have the same production just because you run the same scheme. but you can see the scheme, or at least I can. And I know a lot of people that can see it. You know, like people who watch the game closely can see the scheme. Even who don't watch it that closely can see the scheme, but I certainly can see it. Not seeing the results is expected. Not seeing the scheme at all is not suspected or expected. And the reason for that has to be coaching. They're implementing the scheme.
And fumbles. Mike, that's when you look at it. We had 25, somewhere around there. You can't have that. And, we weren't even in the single digits in the minus turnover margin. No, it's amazing. I say this, that we even won, 7 games. Mike,
it really kind of is. I was thinking about that the other day because I think the Saints, they weren't good really at anything, and they were anemic at times with things. I mean, the fact that Alvin Kamara had touchdowns, I think, in only 2 games, and one of those games was a 3-touchdown game. The fact that he only had those 2 games, we were... how many interceptions did we force this year? Was it 5? Maybe not even. Like Hebert just said, we're terrible in the turnover battle. Like, we were just bad all around. How the hell did we win 7 games? And honestly, we should have won a couple extra games. The Vikings game in London, the Bengals game, stuff like that, like bounces that didn't go our way, Carolina. I mean, this team, for as bad, and that's another thing that I think is lost in this. The Saints have a talented roster. For being as bad as the Saints were, one thing they do have is a talented roster. If we can just get the scheme and coaching and philosophy and culture behind this roster, I mean, the Giants have a worse roster than the Saints, bottom line. What's the difference? Brian Daboll, Mike Kafka. Those are the differences. The coaching, offensive coordinator, play calling, scheme, all that stuff. The Titans. Do the Titans have a better roster than the Saints? No, they have Mike Vrabel. We need that. That's what we need. Our roster is talented. If Kyle Shanahan was coaching the Saints and Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael were coaching the Niners, you think Brock Purdy would be that good? You think they would look how they look? No, they wouldn't. They would have missed the playoffs. I can guarantee you that. I guarantee you the Niners would have missed the playoffs. Even as good as their defense is, they would have missed the playoffs, and the Saints would have made the playoffs with Shanahan. 100%.
That would be like a 2 or 3 or 4 win team.
Bob, your defense saved your bacon.
Yeah, exactly. That's why
they saved your bacon with this. They didn't come up with the turnovers, but again, people don't realize how big of an impact Drew Brees, Sean Payton had on this football team. And you can say, yeah, we're going through transition. Well, transition means you got to do something a little different.
Well,
you got to run the ball better, and that's something this team struggled with all season long.
Well,
the running game is another thing where you can be really results-oriented and just say, like, we average blank rushing yards per game. We average blank per carry, which is good to look at those analytics. But then you go deeper and you say why. And you start looking at how we're running the football, who's running the football, what sets we're running out of. We were very linear. We were very boring, very basic in the running game. We were running Alvin Kamara as if he was Jerome Bettis. We were running him in between the tackles, straight up and down, vertical running plays, no creativity, no misdirection. We were the lowest team in the NFL in pre-snap motion. That hurts the running game. When you're just lining straight up, when you're lining up just head on head, and anyways, when you're lining up, that's what's going to happen. This isn't 1A football in South Mississippi. This is the NFL. You're going to have to get creative. You're going to have to get some misdirection, get some motion, get things like that. Alvin Kamara is not that kind of runner where you just need to run him halfback dives up the middle, up the middle right, up the middle left, and see what happens. Get him in some space. So it's easy to be like, we can't run the ball. So it's an offensive line issue or a running back issue. To me, it's the same shit we've been talking about. It's a scheme issue. Bottom line.
Well, and I still think, let's change the running back coach. But the running back coach, he didn't tell Mark Ingram to run out of bounds.
Exactly.
He didn't tell.
That wasn't even a run. The play they're talking about was the Tampa Bay play. We had a whole video on this play. That was a passing play. That's exactly what I'm talking about. A passing play with Mark Ingram against the Bucs when Mark Ingram has a torn meniscus or MCL. And why isn't Alvin Kamara in the game? If it's a passing play, if our back is receiving the ball, why is a healthy Alvin Kamara not the one receiving that? That's a personnel problem. That's getting the right people in the game. That's package issues. Anyways, that's all that stuff. And that's all back to coaching. Like every single time someone says something that's wrong with the Saints, every single time, it's like a direct line, a straight line at the issue, which is coaching, scheme, philosophy, all that stuff. That is 100%. It's very rare you can say this. Another team, any other team, you could say like, well, offensive line is bad, or the receivers are bad, or the running backs are bad, or the quarterback did play really bad. Like the Jets, you can say the Jets. You can point to them and say they missed the playoffs, really probably because of quarterback play. If Mike White was playing the entire year, the Jets probably make the playoffs. If Aaron Rodgers is on the Jets, they probably make the playoffs. Like you can say that. If Aaron Rodgers were on the Saints this past year, I don't think much would have changed. I really don't. Whoever you think is the best running back in the NFL, well, let's just say Christian McCaffrey. If Christian McCaffrey was on the Saints, I don't think the Saints would have had an explosive run game. I don't think it was a talent issue. I think it was just not being able to put players where they needed to be.
Alvin Kamara to fumble. But somebody has to be a fall guy. And, Dennis Allen is focused on the defense. I still think he has confidence in Pete Carmichael. And it's very similar even to what they did with Sean. You look at the bounty gate, and at times Sean will let Pete Carmichael call the offense. If you can remember.
So I've heard that a lot this week here locally in New Orleans. They're pointing to when Sean was suspended and Carmichael was like the lead play caller. But Sean was in the room, and Sean was in the building, and Sean was helping game plan, and Sean was laying out the plays, and Sean was scripting things, and Carmichael was just running the script. Like, I don't think for that time, Carmichael just became, and this is why I say that, because if you can do something like that, and then you get an extra 6 years of experience, it doesn't just go away. We saw nothing, zero, zilch, zero reminiscent of the old teams. So to me, that has to mean that he wasn't doing it back then. There's no way. I mean, if I studied under Beethoven, if I was Beethoven's understudy, and a few times I could do it. I could play some music that sounded like Beethoven, and sometimes it was kind of similar. And everyone thought we were writing music together. And then Beethoven dies, and then I'm tasked with writing the next album or whatever. I mean, this metaphor is going off the rails. And I'm tasked with writing the next album. If I put out an album and it sounds absolutely nothing like Beethoven, it sounds like absolute shit, isn't reminiscent of it at all, it would be pretty easy to deduce. Good Lord, am I having a stroke? It'd be pretty easy to deduce that Beethoven was writing all the music, right? Even though I was in the room, even though I was doing the stuff, even though I can make it look like that I was playing the same music, I obviously can't write the music if as soon as he dies and it's my time to do it, that it's completely different. That is not close at all, right? Does that make sense? Oh, man, that metaphor took me... Let's just play the video.
I can't remember what preseason game it was, but Pete Carmichael was just starting. Like, I'm the offensive coordinator, play caller, and Ronald Curry called plays for a preseason game.
Yeah.
And he's considered the passing game coordinator, quarterbacks coach. So, Mike, I could see, like not a two-headed monster, but the input that I think Pete Carmichael knows his wheelhouse as far as setting up the game plan. You'd always see him right there by Sean and Drew like the three-headed monster. That I could see now quarterback right now, Andy Dalton, who are you going to go with in the future? Are you going to bring in someone else?
Okay, so it's kind of like if you were with Beethoven. No, I'm just kidding. No more Beethoven metaphors. So this is the suggestion. The suggestion from Cajun Cannon is that to Pete to just kind of do game planning and design, and then have Curry or someone else kind of have some input on play calling, and to basically have a co-offensive coordinator. So if all things were stayed the same, we'd have we would have a Dennis Allen as the head coach, a co-defensive coordinator, and a co-offensive coordinator. God, what a laughing stock that would be. Here's my counter argument, devil's advocate, if you will. If that's the case, if you're willing to do that, what is Pete Carmichael doing? Like, what is he actually there to do? If he can't be the play caller, if he can't be the offensive coordinator, if he can't do those things, why the hell is he on the sideline? Because the whole point of Pete Carmichael, as far as I can see, is to keep the stability and the continuity from Sean Payton's offensive scheme. Well, if Pete Carmichael cannot do that, and you're having to give play calling to someone else with their scheme, then what's Pete Carmichael doing? If he's just watching tape and game planning, why the hell do I think he can do that? He did it all this year. How many times did y'all love the Saints game plan? There was so many recap shows that we did here, and the first thing I would say is, yeah, it looks like we were just running random plays. It looks like we had no rhyme or reason for any of that stuff. You know, it looks like we had no rhyme or reason for why we were running certain plays or passing on certain downs or any of that stuff. You know, like I said that every week. I said, yeah, I'm not sure why we went into this game and didn't run Taysom Hill. I don't know why we didn't run Alvin Kamara. I don't know why we did this. I don't know. So what is it that happened this year that makes you think Pete Carmichael is some incredible tactician, game planner? I don't get that.
Else, but I can see as far as that Pete Carmichael still a big part of the offense. But he might help Ronald Curry and put his input that way and let Ronald Curry call the plays. I'm just telling you that might happen.
We'll see. Ronald's going to have a part in the Senior Bowl also, where they could give him an opportunity, a bigger opportunity there. It comes down to, Bob, this team has to make a dramatic move in the offseason at quarterback. And also to help your running game.
So when you say dramatic move, what does that mean? You're not going to bring back Andy Dalton? I don't know.
I'm not.
I think they're bringing back Dalton. I don't think they need a dramatic move at quarterback. Not until they figure out the coaching. Honestly, I would rather let Ronald Curry just go ahead and be the offensive coordinator. Let him have a chance at this. I would rather let him just take it and run with it than have Carmichael around. And you know, if Curry's getting to go to the Senior Bowl and he's getting involved in all that stuff, let him try. Let him see what can happen. Get a new look in there. Get a new scheme in there. I'm way happier with that idea than this co-headed, this co-offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael situation. Until you have that figured out, you can't go get a quarterback. You can't go get Lamar Jackson if you don't have a scheme. You can't go make a trade for some quarterback like Trey Lance, for example. Frisco needs to ship Trey Lance. We could probably get Trey Lance on the cheap. No one knows how good he is, or whatever. Why would you trust Trey Lance with Pete Carmichael and Dennis Allen? You can't make any of those moves. We had videos on the channel about Justin Fields. Why would you do any of that? Why would you go get Aaron Rodgers? Why would you go get Tom Brady? Why would you go make any of those moves for any of those players when you don't have a scheme, you don't have a system, you don't have any of that stuff? Andy Dalton was pretty successful this year for not having a system or a scheme. Congratulations to Andy. I think Andy was admirable in his performance this year. So I would love a dramatic move at quarterback, but I want to see a dramatic move at offensive coordinator and head coach first.
I'm not saying they won't, but if you think a rookie quarterback is going to walk in here and put his hands on this team and change it overnight, Bob, come on, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a rookie good enough. And again, do I trust a rookie quarterback with these two coaches? No, I do not. Let me know in the comments below, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think about that suggestion? Should Ronald Curry be the offensive coordinator? Should Ronald Curry be the co-offensive coordinator? Should Dennis Allen, should he be the co-offensive coordinator? Or should he just go sit his ass up in the booth and watch some TV or something? Let me know in the comments below what you think what they should do. Thank you, WWL, for putting this video out. Appreciate it. All the links to that will be below. I'll see you in the next one.